Have you considered buying or selling in Cedar Falls in the next 30 days? Would you like to, I don't know, save thousands of dollars when you do it? My name's Elliot Halsh, and I'm going to give you the data you need to save thousands on the buyer's side or make an extra 2% on average on the seller's side. Now, before we dive into the numbers, I'm going to tell you two of the different terminologies I have here on the board. DOM is days on market, and months supply is a ratio used to judge the health of the real estate market. Nationally, the average is 6.4, and a healthy market is considered 5 to 7 months supply. What is month supply? Month supply is how quickly all the active inventory should sell. So the lower the number, the less inventory and the faster it's going to sell. The higher the number, the longer it's going to take to sell. Now, as you can see here, our month supply is 3.03, which is extremely low in comparison to the national average. So just based on that number alone, we have a very low supply. But based on what I'm seeing in the Cedar Falls market, I think it's even lower than that. I think that number is actually inflated, and I'll show you with these next numbers here. Next to that, we have our days on market. The days on market for our active listings is 81. Now compare that to listings that have sold year to date at 50, or properties that have sold in the last 30 days at 33 days on market. So why is there this discrepancy? Why is the active almost taking twice as long to sell as what's closed in the last 30 days? Well, let's look at the last piece of the puzzle. List price. The average list price of the active inventory is over $330,000, which is extremely high for the Cedar Falls market, which is usually sub $200,000 as far as the average purchase price goes. All right, let's break it down into specific price ranges, and this is where you're going to get the real information that you need to make a good decision in buying, selling, or potentially holding. So, $100,000 to $160,000. This market, buying side, it's hot. Pending versus active, huge differentiation in days on market. That means if it's good, it's not sitting. That days on market's high because there's a lot of listings that aren't as attractive that are just sitting out there. So, buying side, if it's a good property, you need to jump. Now, I will say jump with caution. Make sure you have an agent that's giving you the right information so you can know if you're buying a house at the proper price. Because yes, an inflated market, you do need to buy a little higher, but you could also buy too high, and then in 3 or 4 years when you're going to sell your starter home, you could take a bath. And the house could potentially be worth what you paid for it 3 years ago, or unfortunately sometimes it's worth less. Selling side, get it on the market. List, list, list. If you have a house that's decent, 100 to 160, get it on the market. It's going to sell. It's going to sell fast, and it's going to sell for top dollar. Sellers in this price range are basically naming their price right now. So again, buyers, be cautious. Sellers, get it on the market. Sellers, don't be putting a ton of money into your houses. If it's sellable, if it looks good, if there's no huge issues, clean it up, get it on the market. Do cheaper things, freshen up the paint, clean the carpets, basic. Keep it minimal. You don't need to go overboard right now. There's not a ton of inventory you're competing against. There's 17 active listings right now. Get it out there, get the price at the upper end, and you'll be good to go. Now, L to S, list to sale, 94%. Reason why it's lower than the other ones is because you get some of those flip properties around the 100 grand mark. Now we're going to look at the 160 to 220 range. Month supply, 1.88. Very similar to the 100 to 160. Again, we got the same story. It's about half of what the average is. So, super hot market. It's going to be going quick. Buyer suggestions. Stay on top of it. They're going to go fast. But again, check your prices. Now, another piece of advice I would give to buyers, 99% list to sale. So what I would try to do in this price range is get some extras added in there, because it looks like the sellers may not be as willing to budge, but get them to throw in a home warranty, get them to pay closing costs, get them to do some things from the inspection. Kind of think outside the box a little bit, because if they know the numbers too, they're probably not going to move a whole lot. Seller side, list, get it on the market. Now, in this price point, it may be worth it to do a little bit more to the house because of the fact that you have some more inventory and there's quite a few houses on that borderline of a little updated, a little outdated, haven't really done a whole lot to the house. We've done things throughout the course, but nothing to really, do an update. So it may be worth it to add a little flash, do a few upgrades, like I said, the paint, the carpet, maybe a cheap countertop, something to spruce it up, a new vanity in the bathroom, nothing too crazy, but just to set it apart a little bit, some new flooring that looks really nice. Whatever it may be, again, I wouldn't go crazy because we do have a super high list to sale, low inventory still, and a fast month supply. But I would still maybe do a little something to separate yourself. There is quite a bit of inventory. That price range is getting a lot of attention. Some of the open houses I've done recently in that price range, they've had a ton of people through. But the general consensus of what I was getting from these people in the houses I was in was, it's okay. It didn't really have that pop. And the ones that have that pop, they're gone. They're gone right away. So we have a pretty good spike here from the 160 to 220. So why is that? Well, this is kind of an interesting price range here. This 220 to 300, we've got two different types of properties that are increasing our days on market, our month supply, everything like that. And that is these historical homes around a 1900 house that's very large, two-story, that's been updated, it's really beautiful. A lot of them have a lot of character to them, but they tend to sit a while. Those, as well as high-end condos, apartments, townhouses, whatever you want to call them, all three, we have different variations. But those two categories of properties tend to sit a little longer, and they have a little bit more of a defined buyer pool. So those properties are bringing up our month supply, they're bringing up our days on market, and again, are slanting the stats a little bit. So this is still a very popular price range. The tricky thing with it is it's getting towards the top of people's budgets overall, but to get into the next tier, into some of that newer construction, you need to break the 300 a lot of times. A lot of times the sub 300 newer construction is going to be pretty small, 1,200 square feet on the main, maybe 1,000 square feet on the main. Sometimes it's not quite as much space. You're going to get a smaller garage. A lot of them are 20 by 20s, which if you know anything about garages, you can't fit a truck in one of those. So you get kind of this cramped new construction without finished basements, or again, some of those dated houses. This is a great price range for 70s, 80s, 90s houses that have been updated. There's a bunch of them in here. You get a ton more square footage and they're huge value. So if you're in this price range and you're a buyer, I would look for something that's maybe 20, 30 years old that they totally renovated, because you're going to get so much more value than these early 2000s houses with the unfinished basement and 1,200 square feet and a 20 by 20 garage. Because those older houses are going to have the bigger garages, a lot of 22 by 22s, 22 by 24s, and then they also have 2,500 square feet, almost 3,000 square feet. So buyers, I would definitely look for something just with a few years on it, but that's been really well updated and a super well taken care of house, versus trying to stretch some of that new construction that really just isn't a good value. Because you got to think, new construction gets old, and if you have base finishes in your house and it was a 2010 build and now we're in 2025 or 2030, the house is 20 years old and it has no upgrades. It's a very base model. So it's not going to have as much appreciation as something that's very nice. It's a classic look. It's not just a cookie cutter, ranch that has a whole street of them. Now on the seller side, a little bit more supply. So we need to be even a little bit more particular. If you have a house in this price range, make sure that it's an attractive place. You have to be sellable in this market. A phrase agents use all the time is, if it's not compelling, it's not selling. So, in this price range, you have to make it compelling. You have to make it look nice, maybe stage it up a little bit. Ask your agent on how to make the rooms look the best, how to get it to show better than the other houses. maybe take a look at Zillow, take a look at what's online, and check out different properties in your price range and say, hey, that doesn't look as good, that looks a lot better, I could do that pretty easily, and really, focus on how you can improve your property to separate yourself from this other market. So this is what's skewing our overall market. So again, the 3.03, look at that 7.9 months supply. So we're higher than national average. We're higher than what they consider a healthy market in our 300 plus. And again, that's what skewed that 303 up. That's what skewed the 81 days on market up. This price range right here. As a buyer, this is where you're going to get a deal. In this price range, you could get $10, $20, $30, $40,000 off asking price. You just have to bring the right data. You have to show them comparables. You have to show them that the house that they have in today's market isn't worth what they're asking. So buyers, if you can afford 300 plus, you're in good shape because you have a ton of negotiating power here, inventory galore. Go through, pick them out. Heck, what I'd do if I had a client in this price range is I might look at a few different properties. And instead of having multiple offers like we do on a seller's side, multiple bids on the buyer's side. Let them know, hey, I'm looking at 4 different properties. I'm going to make offers on 4 different properties. So here's my offer. Decide what you'd like to do with it. What do you think a seller's going to think in that position? They're going to be like, I better come back really good because they're walking if I don't give them a number they like. Now, seller side. Might want to pull up a lawn chair and sit down for a while because I don't know if I'd necessarily list in this price range unless you have a stunning home. If you have a home that everyone's going to love, it's got all the updates, it's got all the nicest finishes, it's a beautiful layout, there's nothing out like it on the market, all right, get it out there, get it sold. But if you have a house on the border, 3,000 square feet, but all dated, trust me, there's plenty of those. They don't need another dated 3,000 square foot house. I can show you plenty. So if you have one of those, you might want to hold off and let this inventory cool down a little bit. Thank you for watching my Cedar Falls market update. Please leave your comments on what you thought of the video. Did you find the information useful? Was it given to you in a format that you guys liked? I'd love to hear all about it. Please like and share the video. I'll see you in the next one.